All right, we're good to go, so let's call this meeting of the Romeo Planning Commission for February 2nd, 2023 to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, now Cindy, will you do the roll call? And as your name is called, since we have so many new people, if you don't mind just raising your hand so we can attach a face to a name. Okay.
Stegner,
Here.
Hall,
Here.
Grandstaff,
Here?
Hale,
Here. What was that?
Fowler,
I didn't hear.
Hale.
Hale.
Minton.
Here.
We have two Parkers, so Bill Parker,
Here.
Justin Parker,
Here.
Webb,
Here.
everybody's present.
Okay, so now we move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. Any objections or additions?
So moved. Second.
Second, motion before us is to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the meeting minutes from January 5th. Everybody agree that
So moved.
they're in order? Second. Okay, Lisa Hall seconds. Motion before us is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'll abstain. I was not here.
Now, we move on to the public forum. If you have something you'd like to bring before the planning commission of any nature, now's the time. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patty Troya from 206 and 212 South Main. Just have some thoughts on the issue of the mixed use. So I wrote everything down. I hope you don't mind if I read it to you, just so that I would remember everything. So I own two buildings on the corner of Main Street and Benjamin. This section of the village, it's between Washington and Croswell Street, was previously zoned office. It's my understanding that the new master plan, as prepared by Mr. Casson, has been adopted and that the district will now be designated as mixed use. After the last meeting, it was explained to me that the next step in the process for the new master plan will be for the board to define exactly what mixed use is. And I would just like to express to the members of the board that I feel adopting the true definition of mixed use in this area to include office use, retail, residential, and restaurants would be extremely beneficial to both local businesses and the residents of Romeo. Doing so would preserve and expand the village atmosphere and sense of community that is found in areas where you have a wider variety of businesses and increased pedestrian traffic. It would also create a much more cohesive feeling with the rest of the village. Limiting the use of this area to office space only has led to many buildings sitting empty for extended periods of time. The building directly across from us, which had previously been a gas station, sat empty and run down for many, many years, as I'm sure you all remember. And it became an eyesore in the community. At some time ago, even one of our own buildings sat empty for about a year. During that time, we had several parties that were interested in that space, but the zoning ordinances prevented them from opening their business there. One of them that comes to my mind is a seamstress. Her business would have provided a much-needed service to the area residents, and it's a very low-traffic type of business, but she wasn't allowed to be in that district. When she was denied from renting our space and unable to find anything suitable in the central business district, she opened up in another community, and we lost a valuable service for our own residents. Most recently, at the last zoning board meeting, two young ladies requested that they be allowed to open a tea room just south of Washington Street. This would be another great asset to our community, but they were told that the current ordinance wouldn't allow them to operate in the space they have leased. Again, this is a desirable business for our residents that we may lose to another community due to the current zoning, and then that's another building that could potentially sit empty for a long period of time again. In my experience as a property owner in this district for more than 20 years, the availability of office space outweighs the need. With the trend towards more and more people working from home, this need will continue to diminish over time, and that's going to lead to more empty spaces as time goes on. The integrity of the historic nature of many of the buildings in this district is crucial, and they lend themselves well to businesses such as a seamstress or a tea room or even a boutique shop. It's hard to argue that it's better to see empty buildings sitting and deteriorating, such as the old gas station did, rather than to see them used for businesses that could provide valuable and needed services to our community. I'd also like to point out there are already businesses in the office district that do not conform to the old outdated office zoning ordinances. One of those is our own martial arts school, and the other is the Dairy Queen. While both are grandfathered in, we have both provided valuable service to the residents for many, many years. Allowing other similar businesses in the area would continue to expand the types of services and shopping that we offer to residents and visitors. Another issue that I've heard addressed at several meetings is concern over the lack of parking in the Central Business District. We have arguably one of the largest parking lots in the area. Due to the nature of our business, it sits empty most of the day during daytime business hours. By creating a more cohesive feeling with the rest of the village, our parking lot could help alleviate some of the issues with the limited parking spaces in the downtown area. By promoting pedestrian traffic to continue past Washington, hopefully people would park in our lot during the day and would be able to walk from there. I hope that you will consider expanding the type of businesses that can operate in this district to create more businesses that bring people to the downtown area and keep them there in the village to eat, drink, shop, and support all of our local establishments. Our village has a strong sense of place that is unique to our town. Expanding the definition of mixed use would benefit all local business owners in the village and help meet the needs of local residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment on that subject? Commission members have anything to say? Go ahead.
I'm sorry we're late. Is this the one on the 180 South Main that we're taking comments on?
We haven't gotten to that.
102.
This is public
No.
comments.
Yeah,
It's open to anyone for any topic.
They haven't started the actual.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll say it now then, so, since I'm here. Okay. Good evening. My name is John Corbin. My wife Shonda Corbin is there as well. We're property owners at 174 South Main, zoned office district. It's a medical office on the ground floor, residential rental on the first floor, or on the second floor, in accordance with the zoning. We had not received any notice of this public hearing on the proposed rezoning until about 2 hours ago. That's why I'm sort of rushed. It was my understanding that property owners within a certain radius are to receive written notice of such rezoning requests. I know I'd gotten a notice when the bank was being built, and that's close to us. Also, there was a house on East Washington that was going to be torn down. We got notice of that, but we never got any notice of this. Is this the appropriate time for me to do these comments, or should I come back when we do that?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
All right. This is not a public hearing. We're not talking, the property has not been rezoned.
Okay.
It is proposed in the master plan
Yes.
to be a mixed-use district.
Okay.
We,
I
at
wasn't
this
aware of
point
that
in
yet.
time, are just discussing what would we like in the mixed-use district.
Oh, okay.
So until all of that is
Should I wait
ironed out.
until, should I wait until
Well,
later?
no, you
The
can go ahead
public
and
hearing was
continue. You can go
at the
ahead and
last meeting,
continue.
correct?
It was a month ago.
Yeah, the public hearing has
Yeah.
already
Public
happened.
hearing was a
So,
month.
and this is public comment, so if you wanted to make a comment,
Yes.
now would be the time to do
Yes.
it.
Because they
Okay.
said they sent letters out.
Yeah.
I,
I told her, I'm sorry, I get one, I'll look to see.
we didn't get
your
one. I made
address.
copies of my comments if you want them.
Sure, I would love that, thank you.
But I'll just keep reading then. Okay, my concerns regarding this request have to do with pedestrian and vehicular safety, access, circulation, and parking. Our building sits directly north of 180 South Main, has 11 parking spaces, 2 parking spaces specifically for residential tenant use as required by section 46273 of the ordinance, 1 handicap parking spot closest to the medical office entry door, 4 parking spaces for office staff and doctor use, and 4 parking spaces for patient use. On occasion, we've observed vehicles driving over the parking blocks that divide our parking lot from the parking lot behind 180 South Main and exiting to West Washington Street. This occurs without permission, is unsafe, and is unwelcome. This type of incursion and unwelcome use may increase if the proposed rezoning was granted. During the annual Peach Festival, Halloween, Tilson Street, and similar village-wide events, we've needed to rope off our parking lot to maintain parking for our tenants, our residential tenants, and to reduce chances of injury to the public and damage to our parking lot. We're concerned that this proposed rezoning may create a negative impact on our surrounding property with respect to parking, vehicular access, circulation, vehicle and pedestrian safety. The property has 1 access point to South Main Street. And then I had questions. I didn't know if the property currently has necessary parking for its current office district use, and will it have necessary parking for its proposed CBD Central Business District use. And we're not clear why the property owner needs a rezoning, which would create an unnecessary gap in the current office district. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, John.
Again, I'm sorry I was late.
Pretty good. Okay, any other comments on that subject or any others?
Thank you for your time. I'm Shonda Corbin. I'm the co-property owner or tenant and the medical provider on the first floor. My concern is with the patient safety, especially during our medical office hours. As you know, as a foot and ankle specialist, patients are coming in with various aids, and my concern is traffic potential toward vehicular traffic through our parking lot, which has happened during business hours. And so that my main concern is patient safety and pedestrian safety crossing West Washington. So thank you for your time.
Am I allowed to make a comment addressing their concern?
You're allowed to make a comment, yes.
Okay.
This-
Yeah, I did notice that somebody had drove through, up there.
Hi, my name is Missy. I am part of the Tracy and I are requesting the rezoning of 180. I did notice that somebody had drove through that section, and I have addressed that currently. And we had actually already been talking about a little bit of a higher divider, as we did recognize that that could be a potential issue with people going in, treating the parking lot as one big parking lot instead of separate parking lots. So in what we're working on doing, there is already something in mind to make sure that nobody crosses that. And it hopefully will not be an issue, because it will be big enough that they won't be able to go over. So we've actually already been talking to people who do parking lots and paint the lines, and that has been brought up, if that helps at all. If there's any other questions or anything, just definitely let me know. So, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, anybody? All right, well, we'll close the public forum and we'll move on to unfinished business. First item is rezoning request from office to central business district for the following property, 180 South Main Street. I think we all know what we're talking about. So, anybody have any comments? Lisa?
I did not totally understand at the last meeting what the problem was as far as allowing them to have their business there. I forget who was concerned about if it violated ordinances or something. I can't remember. Zone office. But I gotta say, I mean, they've got parking in the back, not a lot of spaces, but they are willing to try to start a business here in town. And I think this is helpful to the growth of our village. We're changing the zoning on that. I'm not sure if we can do that as a temporary or if we must make it a permanent. I didn't see the problem at the last meeting and couldn't really get a good answer. As far as I'm concerned, I see no problem with these ladies wanting to start a business in what is now office, and it will be a mixed use. But we got so much of it in town. You know, we can talk about the gas station that was from years back. I think we have to be careful, but I think they're not in any way changing the structure of the building. They're basically keeping it as it is now. So I say if they want to do it, I will make a motion to allow this property to be zoned mixed use or whatever you wanna, whatever title you wanna make for it.
I guess part of the issue I see is we still don't have the clear definition with the village of what mixed use is. So until we get that defined to give it a mixed use classification, kind of leaves it, I would say, less than it is currently, because it has no classification based on the village definition of mixed use. If we zone it into the central business district, that stays with the property, not just with the current owner. So if these owners decide to sell or leave, and now it's central business, now our setbacks completely change from the office district to central business district. Like the front setback in central is to the sidewalk. So now we're talking, we could put up a 3-story building right up to the sidewalk because the zoning stays with that property.
May I comment on that? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay,
Sorry.
Let them.
go ahead.
It was my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong and I can be corrected, but it was my understanding in the new master plan that we're all moving forward with, that there is a definition of central business or a mixed use, and that we just have to get the old code book to align with the master plan. And I was at the village meeting last week, and they did hire a city planner. So, and that is, by my understanding, there's going to be an opportunity for those two books to coincide now. So it wouldn't be like you're giving us the mixed use and we can do whatever we want with it. There is a definition in place that we would still have to follow, and it would still be that definition when the master plan is absorbed into the new code book.
And I don't believe we're asking for a CBD to be included downtown. Currently, we're asking for the rezoning for the mixed use, which will change anyway when the master plan is adapted.
Yeah, we're
But
just asking for it ahead of
Right, so,
schedule.
yeah, so I don't know if you can
So what
do-
was presented to us, and I'm not to cut you off, it does say rezoning from office district to central business district is what's been presented to us at the board.
Okay,
Terribly
And
sorry about
you're
that.
correct, there
We
is
do
a
apologize.
definition for mixed use, but has not been adopted
Correct.
officially with the village yet.
Yes.
Correct.
So that's where we're kind of putting the
Well,
cart before the
'cause I know
horse,
last-
would be my understanding.
last time, like, if we could be central business, that'd be great, but last time they said absolutely no. So we dropped that off and like, okay, well, if we can't do that, then can we rezone it, which is what it's gonna be when the new plan is in place.
Who said absolutely no?
It seemed like, as we were talking, that,
I don't recall what you were saying.
Spot,
Because-
spot zoning
Yeah,
would be
because
more
the-
difficult because
because
they're
the-
our border.
yeah, because we were not.
Yeah, essentially you were asking for a spot zone, which.
Right. Yeah,
we-
and that sounded
They
like it
still
would
are.
be
Yeah.
more difficult.
That's
Well,
what-
I think we're talking about expanding central business so that they can, because they're not, what their business is not office. It's,
Right.
you know, like, what is it, a restaurant, tea
It's-
house?
Tea room,
It-
more like.
Athenaeum, like
library.
library, and then we have small
Right.
bites.
So that
tea,
would,
coffee.
you could do that in the central business district, which is, how many lots away are you from?
There's one in between,
Okay.
Yes.
and it's, I
This
believe it's.
couple has the business in between us and the CBD.
Okay,
So-
so, all right,
So, yeah, I don't
And-
think we'd be looking at expanding the central business, more adopting a mixed use
Right.
section.
which we're gonna discuss tonight.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't help you tonight.
Well, I mean, we have looked at, like, we have the ability to be open as a library, which we were always planning on having a library. That is allowable in the current zoning. We can be a library. We were kind of hoping that by asking for the rezoning so that there isn't any question on our intent, that would be kind of like a sign of, you know, good faith. This is what we want to do. Let you guys, you know, tell us where you see some hiccups and where there might not be, and go from there. Because ideally, the tea room is going to be the draw. Like, it's going to be what we hope brings people in.
Not the library.
Not necessarily the library part. But I think it's also, you know, it would be nice to have that setting for the area and the community.
The other thing I
I'd like-
saw in the information we got that our planner,
Yes.
Here's everything.
John had said that they were probably short on parking, is that correct?
I wanted to talk about that, because I actually, since this is my first meeting, I actually read all of this stuff, and then I went over and looked, and I was there tonight and looked at it. And a typical parking spot today is about 12 feet wide, and I measured the ones in front of Mr. Corbin's office, and they're 12 feet wide. Under the best of circumstances, the most you're gonna get in your backyard is maybe 7 parking spots. Maybe. Now, you could have a planner demonstrate that I'm
Yes.
wrong and I can't see where diddly shit, and that's okay.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
But just
Yeah.
for, that's kind of what's happening today.
Yes.
With a 48-foot wide lot, you could possibly get 4 going in and 3 going out, because that's 7, and you just don't have any more room than that. You're gonna need 2 parking spots for your apartment upstairs if you're gonna keep a residence up there, which brings you down to 5. In a situation where Dr. Corbin and her husband have already posted the property after numerous problems of other people parking there, the fact that they're actually asking for a CBD rezoning leaves me with, this simply doesn't make any sense. Until you can demonstrate some zoning. I notice in your request here, or in your information sheet, you said you've got 12 parking spots.
Yes, that is
I'm-
correct. There's 10 in the back and 2 up alongside the
2 along
driveway.
the side.
But how are they gonna get in and out?
Well,
I
that,
would have, respectfully request you have a surveyor or a planner or an architect, and I shared an office with an architect, which everybody here knows for 20 years, and routinely you saw this happen. And they were, $500 to $1,000. But you do need to demonstrate that in some manner realistically that you can put X number of cars there. I can't see how they can do it, but, now if you had Justin's backyard, you could bulldoze a buddy place and put 20. But,
Well,
you know,
I
it
do
could-
have a,
Justin?
I do have a
Comes.
question on the parking space issue for, in terms of us. It seems like parking is a concern for all of the businesses throughout town. The one right across from me has, 4 parking spots, and it's a bar. And so.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you're talking about.
The bar,
The
The
barbecue.
barbecue.
They have 4 or 5 that are designated for their parking. They are CBD, which that definition seems to have a little bit more leeway in the parking
because it allows them to
area.
park downtown.
It's
And-
because it's a headache, and it's already a bad headache, and sometimes if you've got a bad headache that's verging on a migraine, you don't take a hammer and hit yourself on the head and see if you can increase the pain.
I understand where you're coming from there, but at the same time, large cities that end up having more businesses come in, parking is always an issue. And then the only way to alleviate that is to designate a lot to be turned into elevated parking. Otherwise, people get used to walking.
This is not a large, it's the village of Romeo with about 2,500 residents, and where Bill might make a motion to grant you your rezoning request. I, on the issue of being a pain in his butt, would make a motion to deny it.
Just like always.
Always. Bill and I've been like this for 50 years, so don't let that bother me.
We had addressed,
I'm just trying to point out to you that you're talking about adding essentially a small restaurant. And
No,
you'll have
it's not a
essentially,
restaurant.
well, a tea room, you're gonna serve muffins and all of this other stuff. People are going to go there and eat. You're telling me with 2 spots reserved for your apartment,
The upstairs would not be in use.
so what we were,
period. It does, the numbers don't make any sense at all. Respectfully, you need to have a planner or surveyor or architect demonstrate something that would bring you within, say, 10% of what's actually required today for what you're talking about.
Can I ask a question of, I did watch, because I was not part of this discussion last month, but I did go back and watch the meeting, and Lisa had brought up some about the parking. Do you have,
There was never anything done with that.
no,
To
that's, so
my-
my question is,
to
do we
my
have,
knowledge.
is there a number of, like, this is what would be needed in order to make that work? Is there, like,
Here's our planner.
oh, hi.
I'm Karen Levere, I'm your new planner.
okay,
Um,
welcome.
I did the math, and based on the information we received, just on the pure numbers, I think we need 17 parking spaces.
Okay, that was my thing, looking over it, saying, well, how many
So-
would be
That was
required
17?
under the current?
17.
That's what I thought.
And so,
Okay.
some of the commissioners have said, if you can give us more detail drawn to scale about what you'd like to do with the property and what you envision for it, that can help clarify some of these questions.
Are you
Well-
speaking of the outside or the inside?
The outside, but also the building, what, square footage, what are you gonna be using for whichever entity? Whether the library, the tea room, so that we just have a better, better square footage numbers, because basically how most of the ordinances, the parking spaces are based off of square footage of whatever you're
Right,
doing,
and we,
so-
we had the,
Fire marshal.
fire marshal come out and check it so that we had a better idea.
Of what our occupancy would
I
be.
would respectfully, and I don't mean to interrupt the planner, but respectfully suggest you be careful about what you ask for, because it is possible to go into the CBD and do what you want to do, but you get to pay for what, everything you're missing. And I
Right.
think we're at 7,000 per parking spot right now.
That's what they said was not
So
established.
if-
That's not
I'm sorry, I was sat at the DDA meeting where
Payment in
the
lieu.
village president or the then village president made a motion as to what should be adopted. And it was $7,000, because I was at 10 and someone else was at 5 and she said 7.
Yeah, I think
And that's
it was-
what we voted on at the DDA. Now, what happened after that, I don't know. But if, let's just say that you're short 12, that means you'd have to pony up an additional $94,000 to the village before you could open the doors.
So, with all due respect, with the idea that the street that we're on is going to be rezoned mixed use, are you going to then only allow certain businesses to be rezoned mixed use? Based on whether
Because
or
of the
not?
parking?
Yeah, because I don't have a problem like drawing things out. I actually went to school for interior design,
What
so.
I'm saying is if you, let's say you get your mixed use,
Mhm.
but then you're going to have a series of other issues that you're going to have to address. And let's say you've already got the mixed use, so you don't have to ask for that. If we did adopt, and maybe you guys know more than I do, the payment in lieu, and it was adopted at 7,000, and you need 17 parking spots, and you've got 5, that means you're gonna come up with $94,000 as a payment to the village.
On a
Do
yearly
understand it,
basis?
if you got your mixed use or
Right,
CBD.
so then
because
that would be the
you would have
precedent
to meet
for all of the businesses coming
Yes.
forward?
Yes.
Is
Right.
that
If
they
they're
would
in
all
the
have to,
CBD, yeah.
That was the whole point.
but for
of
mixed
it.
use,
That's the
not
whole
CBD.
point of adopting a payment in lieu, because it's very difficult to do at a business which has got a significant draw. We don't have any parking. Now, if you want to do that and it is done, then, okay, then you're gonna pay the village so they can take that money and acquire parking. That's the whole idea behind a payment in lieu.
no, I understand that.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I guess what I'm thinking is, say that we walk away, and then now you guys rezone that street mixed use. The next business that comes up, they're going to be met with the same
That's correct.
issues, even though the master plan accounts for foot traffic.
That's correct.
Does mixed use break out that the on-site parking is required?
No,
Right,
as far
so-
as I could tell, it did not.
It's not, the treated is the same as the CBD where general parking is accepted. Like, in the CBD, general parking is accepted, all these village lots exist for those businesses. Mixed use is gonna be, to me, on-site parking, where you have to demonstrate, as the planner requested, that you can facilitate the number of spaces to run whatever the occupancy is you're asking.
And
Regardless of
I
who-
thought it was different. I thought that it
Stamped
addressed,
engineered.
especially in the master plan, it addressed parking as to the idea that people will walk down that street now. So in my opinion, in interpreting that, they're taking into account that none of these businesses, potential businesses on the street that we're on, has adequate parking to be rezoned, hence the reason of the master plan, where it addresses parking somewhere else in the village and walking to these businesses.
The illogic or logic of what you're saying is that, let's say everybody there goes to mixed use, and everybody there is short parking.
Correct, okay.
Where the hell are all these people gonna park and come from? I mean, you can't possibly logically say, okay, I'm short 12, and the next one's gonna be short 6, but the people on the corner, they've got extra parking, but that is private parking, and they've got 2 structures there, and by God, they've met their parking requirements, and then you go on down the street. If each and every person is gonna be short,
Yeah.
there's something insane about the logic of all of this. I do appreciate what you want to do. I think it'd be a great draw for the village. You could just do it downtown, and nobody would say anything.
Yeah, and that has been brought up before. It is not our intent to look for a storefront. We were in the market for several years for a house, a Victorian-looking house. So that is what we're looking for our establishment.
Can I address the young lady over there that had mentioned that her,
Dr. Corbin,
no, I'm sorry.
okay.
Patty, had addressed that she has, space in her parking lot that is not normally used, especially during the day. Would that be something that we could negotiate with her and then have a sign that says,
If
you
you're
know,
going
5
to-
doors down is parking?
I can't speak for anyone else here, but if you're going to get a signed lease that's a permanent lease, that's not term limited, this is a forever lease, okay?
forever in terms of our business. It wouldn't necessarily pass on. They would have to negotiate their own.
Past your, yeah.
He's giving her friends.
You're getting into contract rezoning, which we don't have an attorney here to talk about that. When you do a contract rezoning, when you go out and you take your contract with you, then it would revert back to
Changes back
office.
to the
And
office.
you'd have to have Mark in here with their attorney negotiating that. It can be done, as much as a bistro license, you know, if you're familiar with those. I mean, you can grant a bistro license, and if the guy goes, then the license goes back to the municipality. It's not transferable.
Just a contingency.
In terms of a permanent easement, you're essentially buying her property. And acquiring a permanent, if you can demonstrate that, hell, I'll make the motion to do it. But
Talk to the
until you
old-
can
the old
show
bargain barn.
something in the neighborhood
Right.
of some reasonable
Closer.
parking, I personally can't see it, but that's just me. Now, Bill has already said he likes it, so you've got 1-to-1 right now. Sorry.
I really think we can sit and talk about it all we want, but we're landlocked. We don't have a lot of parking area for these businesses that are there or want to come in. So, you know, you've got two ladies here that would like to open what would be a plus for the village, but basically we're saying, well, you can't park anywhere, so.
But the buildings could be used as in terms of denying usability for the property. It could easily be used for office. It could be used for office.
It's
I
not
mean,
going
there's
to
a
generate
guy
as
just
much
bought a
income.
house across the street, and he's opening an office, and he's got, 4 parking spots back there. That's all he needs.
So because we're bringing too much business into town?
I'm sorry.
I guess the other concern would be, from your guys' point of view, if you don't have enough parking to sustain a profitable business, you know, that's
And that's
something,
basically, yeah, that
you
would
know,
be
I guess
something.
I'm not trying to tell you how to look at it,
No.
but.
I guess what I'm confused by and respectfully asking is like, if I can change a little bit about my building or my business plan and be well within my zoning now to open as a library, parking spaces match with what the fire marshal says that we can have for occupancy, and I can open as a library. I don't understand why changing it to mixed use now means that I can't operate the same business but call it a tea house or a tea room.
Well, I guess, my concern, I'm sorry, is that, we don't have that mixed use in place yet, correct? So we can't say now that it can be that if it's not yet been established as an option.
Well, that's what we're asking.
And
That's why that's why we've
for that to be
applied for
done.
the rezoning, and because there
To be
is the
done just
definition.
like the 6 months or year ahead of time. I don't know how long it takes for the planner. I know it's a lengthy process.
Right, but
Yeah,
there is a definition in place.
So there's a definition in the master plan, correct? But yet it has not been adopted by the village. So it's something that does not exist.
Right,
within
that's
the
why
village
we
of
would
Romeo.
have to ask.
So again, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And some of us might be in favor of this happening, and some may not, but I think until the village clearly defines at the village level what mixed use is and puts it into place, we can't give you or recommend that the village gives you a mixed use because it doesn't exist.
You were gonna say something.
Oh, no, I was basically gonna say what these two commissioners have said. There aren't any mixed-use district regulations or definitions in the code right now.
Yeah.
So it's up to the planning commission now to come up with these regulations, codes, and come up with something everyone agrees upon, then send it to the village board, and then they ultimately get to approve it and decide whether it gets adopted into the code, which then
So we have a request for rezoning to central business district. Is that correct?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we deny that request.
Wait, we got a motion, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to.
Let's go ahead.
If we got a motion, we need a second and then a vote, correct?
That's correct. Anybody want to second that motion?
We had a motion by Ransap, right, to rezone?
No, he didn't. He said he was inclined to. I said,
Oh.
I made a motion to
Oh,
deny.
I thought he did make a
No,
motion.
I made a motion to deny it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion before us to deny this rezoning, so,
Rezoning to central business.
to central business district. All in favor of that?
Doesn't this have to be roll call?
We can do roll call. I
I'll
don't
do roll
think
call.
it was necessary, but,
Stegner,
I'm in favor of that. Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Grandstaff,
No.
Hale,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Minton,
Yes.
Bill Parker,
Yes.
Justin Parker,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes. Motion.
8 to 1.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is discussion on the mixed use for zoning ordinance. I know Lisa Hall has something to say, right? Correct?
Yeah, I asked it to be put on the
Okay.
agenda. You know, we have a lot of businesses on the end of town that is proposed as the mixed-use district. Changing it from office to mixed use. It's in our master plan. If somebody comes to us and wants to change their rezoning to a mixed use, we need to have some kind of a definition of what we want there, what can happen there, you know, and this is really outdated, so, we need to discuss as a board, what do we want there? What, you know, what's gonna be viable there? What's going to, what do we wanna have? There are, Mr. Casson did, if you read this, Mr. Casson did, you know, does anybody else have theirs? You've got your master plan. So he defines mixed use as, the mixed use category designates areas that are intended to be developed in a way that promotes a mix of retail, housing, employment, office, and institutional uses through unique development and/or design standards. The mix can either be horizontal, adjacent, different but compatible uses, or vertical, different uses within a single building. The objective is to create more walkable, accessible developments with shared parking arrangements either on-site or in collective lots. The future land use map indicates mixed use in the downtown and for all commercial and office areas adjacent to St. Clair and Main Streets. I mean, it gives us a good idea. It gives us a starting point. You know, I pulled this from, I got this from the Michigan Association of Planning today. It's the benefits of a mixed-use development. I can give this to Cindy. I mean, it's not all gonna happen tonight. You know, I've been through this process. It's not all gonna happen tonight, but we as a board need to talk about this, figure out what's gonna work, what's not gonna work, and then get it to the village board so you guys can critique it and yes, that'll work, or no, we don't agree, or, you know. So we need to start somewhere.
Lisa, don't we have a planner who can make some
We do,
recommendations?
yeah, we do, and she will be the one that we will work with, and she will help us and get us through this, and, you know, so yes, we're gonna depend on her for a whole lot, but we
Yeah.
have to discuss it as a board.
I agree. I'd like to see that area utilized more. I mean, especially there. I mean, for me, that'd be ideal. My wife loves tea, right? Jump across the street, she's there, that'd be awesome. But we do need definitions. We need, the other thing I think about is if we do a mixed use, do we still then have to classify it as a certain zoning, or do we add that to our list of zonings for setbacks? As far as, does it still maintain the residential setbacks, or would it then go to a commercial setback or a CBD setback, something that we probably don't wanna get involved with, having buildings built right up to the sidewalks all the way down Main Street.
We basically don't want to see the houses removed.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And that's been the overwhelming
I guess-
desire of the planning commissions for the last, I can talk about 50 years, but, you know, it's just the way it is. And the things that
yeah.
I would, maybe I'm wrong, but if you're gonna bring in a tea room or a library, there must be some type of standards for parking that you have to meet, and how do we add that or put that in there on a reasonable basis?
And that's the
And
question.
that's
the
what,
question for the
that's the reason I
planners,
think
right.
we've hired
The
a
same-
professional to advise us on
Right.
that.
The same with setbacks.
Chairs.
You know,
Or it sounds like you want to maintain the character and the feel of the area, of how it currently is, but allow for different uses, a mix of uses.
Sure, as a real estate broker, I tell you, you get the question all the time, well, and then, well, I would like to do this there, and you say, well, you can't. Well, you can, but then you have to get a special use, but, well, it turns out that a special use won't do it, because you have to be zoned commercial, well, that doesn't fly. So how do you use how do we do this mixed use thing without actually having everybody come in for rezonings, or I guess on a mixed use?
Well,
You're
And how
gonna
does
go
the shared
individually, they're gonna be back before the board here on, are we going to allow that there? I guess, I don't know, I'm looking for professional advice.
We'll have to look, I'll have to do some research, we'll have to look at what all the parcels are that are in the mixed-use district, what are the regulations there? And then the master plan, see what the recommendations were there, draft some language, have you guys take a look at it, decide what are the permitted uses, what are gonna be the special land uses there, what's gonna be prohibited there, what should the parking standards be? I mean, it's gonna be a process, but basically we'll be having workshops going over how do we make this new,
We're concerned about keeping the character more than anything else,
yeah.
period, I think. And again, I'm speaking strictly for myself. But I think Bill and I would agree on that, dear God. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a first in years. So,
Want to keep what we have in the village. It is a big drawing point
You
for
betcha.
our community. I think one of the first things we should recommend is village council get to work on the parking issue in this village. That's, I know we're gonna be beating our head against the wall. This is,
you're increasing my migraine.
we gotta put up with people like him, so we've got to come up with something to give more parking in the village so we can expand, so these ladies can open I think this is a great idea, and I'm so disappointed that 2 parking spots are holding them up from doing what, or 3 parking spots, whatever it is. I just, we need to get to work on our parking in the village. We can go,
I guess
we
the
can
parking
set,
issue for this would be outside of the central business, right?
Did we adopt the parking in lieu? Did they?
We did.
The council did?
For the central.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but then, on an expansion in doing that, then I would think you would also want to include in this mixed use, if the use that they're talking about, in this case, the tea room and library and what have you, then they can buy their way in.
My thing is,
Period, they can buy their way in, $7,000 a spot, no problem.
with the supported stuff that Lisa handed me where it's basically saying that mixed use was gonna have shared parking as well. I'd like to see some kind of sustainability to that. Show me that there's even availability for
There
shared
is.
parking to the south.
Oh, I'm not.
Well, no, I'm
I
saying
agree
for the
with you
central
on that.
business district, yes.
But the whole
Central-
point.
The central business district is making its own way to solve it with the payment in lieu. If we add the mixed-use district to it, I mean, how do you expand? I mean, is it, like, as you were saying, is it a wholly separate payment in lieu to start
To create a
coalescing
parking fund
money
for
to
the
buy
whole-
something else?
No, a parking fund for the whole village.
Right, but that's my question, is if we expand the mixed use to have shared parking as well, is there any sustainability being done to support that at all, to add that language to mixed use? Because to me, mixed use is, it's on-site parking for what your occupancy is. But, and I understand, you lose all your character when you do that, because your yard is gone, it's now asphalt, period.
Well,
But that's my
the
question
backyards
is,
of all these places are gonna be asphalt, period.
right,
And there is already a drainage problem back there, which
Right.
we're not even talking about, but sooner or later, someone is gonna talk about that you can't keep flooding the neighbors' yards. But that's what's going on now.
Yeah, so I guess the shared parking or if it's gotta be public parking, how's that gonna work into it? And how's shared parking work when businesses change hands?
But Justin, this is something that the planner,
Yeah, right.
these are our concerns, she's hearing them. And so she's making little notes there about,
Yeah.
parking, question mark, question mark, question mark.
So my question is, how are we gonna approach this? Are we gonna wait for our urban planner to make suggestions and then once a month we discuss this? Or are we gonna form like a subcommittee that meets more frequently than once a month? I mean, how do you wanna do this?
So, I just have a quick question. If I bring enough money to the village to buy these parking spaces, are they guaranteed mine? Can I go in and buy 20 spots?
No.
So then, what's the guarantee that my customers are gonna be able to have a place to park?
So we're kind of like overlapping two different things right now, because so Bill's talking about payment in lieu of, that's currently in place for the central business district for use of the public parking spaces or the public on-street parking in front of the downtown or the main street businesses, where this would be completely different, because my mindset is we wouldn't be able to charge you in a mixed use or office district the payment in lieu of for the parking, the money that's getting invested in downtown in the central business district for that parking lot. Like the Church Street parking lot does nothing for you. People most likely aren't gonna walk
Yeah, exactly.
5 blocks down to have a cup of tea. It might be great tea, I'm not saying anything against that, but,
Right.
so I think that would have to be separate. We would have to be looking at public parking then in our office district. And where do we acquire that and what do we tear down to make that happen?
The whole idea of a parking in lieu or a payment in lieu is, let's get realistic about any individual or even two or three property owners together can't do it. It takes, pardon me, a village to raise a kid. It takes a village to create enough parking to make this thing viable.
Yeah.
It's a joint effort. Now, perhaps there's gonna be a separate fund for the South Main Street, in which that money's dedicated to acquiring property in South Main Street. I can't speak to that, Justin, but
Yeah.
there's got to be some formula or way of doing it. Maybe, you would like to put your backyard for sale, and the village could maybe give you
Just forget about my house.
$400,000,
My house
and you
is-
could
my
deal
house
with your
is
wife
not-
on this one,
no.
but, all right, I'm sorry.
I guess
Yeah.
critique.
No, maybe, but then we have to put a crosswalk in.
Going back to your thing, I think maybe, looking at like a committee so that we can
Subcommittee.
expedite the process, so it doesn't,
Yeah.
And meet several, twice, at least twice a month.
Okay.
right?
I'd volunteer for that.
Would that be something then that you sit down with the planner at that time and
And
have,
the
be able
planner
to say, this is our,
Might be able to join in with
You
that.
too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of times the way these zoning ordinances for districts are broken out is you have the uses, you have, I'll have to take a look at yours, but you have, permitted uses, special land uses, dimensional requirements. I'd say if the concern, if one of the concerns is maintaining the character that's there, you know, that's something that we wanna go in depth, at the very least next week, regardless of whether we form subcommittees or not. I can basically, what I'm thinking maybe is figuring out what parcels are included, where are they currently zoned, and then kind of do a comparison, including the draft language of like, this is, you know, if we're trying to maintain stuff, these are suggested, setbacks, whatnot, stuff like that. Take a look at all, I mean, I could basically draft what it would look like, so you can kind of at least get a snapshot of what we're talking about, all these different criteria, what's all included, and then maybe after doing that, you can kind of get a feel of how you want to break up into subcommittees, if you want to do it that way.
I just had an idea. The city owns the easement on that whole street. What's wrong with creating street parking? Lower the speed limit past Dairy Queen?
We actually don't, that's a county road.
It's a county road.
County, we can't even change the speed limit on that road.
I was like, it's in the ordinances, the median is, you know, part of the.
Yeah, but that involves the county,
Yeah, there's two roads that we don't own.
yeah,
That's one of them.
Van Dyke and
The
32.
petition to the county to change the street, the speed limit.
Please.
Go ahead.
And make street parking, I mean, that answers all, you've got all of that street, if you came up with a way of addressing that to the county, now you've got street parking.
Yeah.
I
carried
think
that
that
all the way to
still
state.
infringes on what we're saying about keep maintaining that characteristic of that look on that street right there. That concerns me. And I think you guys have a great idea of what you want to do for your business. And it's not that I'm not in agreement with, I'm all for small business and, you know, entrepreneurs, but it's that without having a mixed-use definition of what that would look like, that would be my concern is, again, it's that spot rezoning, saying, if you make it that, it's that forever.
No,
And that's,
definitely
right,
a
that's-
concern, for sure. I guess, in terms of, like I said, I went to school for interior design, I've done restaurants and historic buildings, this isn't my first go-around with that. I guess when you guys are talking about saving the charm and characteristic of the area, what, you should look at what would be allowed to be there then, and if that is going to be able to generate enough business and come to support that business. So yeah, you have to keep charm, but at the same time, is it realistic to put in so many roadblocks? We wanna keep the charm for sure, that's the whole reason why we're here, that's the building we liked.
That's a good point. Okay, well, does anybody want to make a suggestion on how we attack this? I mean, do we want to wait?
How
Do you wanna-
long do you think it would take you to put something together? Without, I'm not saying I need it tomorrow, or it's
No, well, today's
realistically.
the second, and you guys meet the second Thursday. I mean, I can try to get something together in 2 weeks, then it gives you guys another 2 weeks to just, I mean, it's just gonna be a draft, there's probably gonna be things in there that you're like, ooh, I definitely don't want that, but just to let you know.
But that's what we
These
want.
are suggestions, or basically, these are the things that could be covered, so then you get an idea of, these are all the things that are gonna have to be taken account for, and then you can decide which area you feel really passionate about, if you wanna form a committee and focus on that, then at the next meeting, we can decide that, but I can probably come up with something in 2 weeks.
Jim, what do you think about maybe in 2 weeks, just having another workshop meeting as a whole board, and then breaking out into a subcommittee
If you
moving
want
forward?
to make a motion to have a special meeting is
I
what.
like to call it
would
a
be-
workshop, but.
No, it's a special meeting. It's more Russian or something.
Just so the whole board.
That's fine. I
can
mean,
have
that's fine.
input
If, you know, we'll make a
initially.
motion. We gotta do something. I mean, it'll take forever if we don't do something special, that's for
Right.
sure.
Right.
Can I
So-
just make one comment? I will not be able to make it, I have a meeting conflict 2 Thursdays from now, just letting you know. So
I mean, we
you guys
can-
are more than welcome, and then I can get feedback from you guys and I can keep chugging along, but, you know, whatever works for the majority.
Perhaps by the next
Yeah,
meeting.
so, I mean, if we can't do something in 2 weeks on the 16th, or a a day before or after, I don't know.
Well, at this point, we're dependent on you
Yeah.
Right.
So
I was
do we
gonna
not
say, it
shoot the
would-
cap,
It
so-
would take me 2 weeks,
Whatever.
probably come up with something. It's gonna take you guys time to read all of it and figure out, or just see everything that's gonna be detailed, because it will be pages and pages.
So can we get something sent out
So I was gonna
in
say
2
2
weeks or
weeks, I
so,
can
and then
send
in the
something
following
to
2
Cindy.
weeks, we have our meeting?
Guys
gonna
can
say,
take a
just for
look
the
at
next
it
regular
and
meeting?
then
You can send it to you
figure it
guys.
out.
Gives you time to.
So let's just hold off till
So,
next month?
yeah, so we'll just wait till next month, and I say we'll wait to hear from you. And, I guess at this point, we'll move on to the next item, which I've lost. Oh, discussion, the accessory building square footage.
I did this to you. I did this to you.
I'd like to see this changed.
As would I. We sent it back from the ZBA to you.
Oh, is that, yeah.
I did this to you. Well, me now, but
Yeah,
It was
I
a
just got a
long
text
time
from
ago.
Zach Fowler about it.
this was a long time ago.
Well, Zach's not here, so.
Oh,
There was.
okay, he's talking about another ZBA issue. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to really
We
read
had,
it.
it was months and months ago, we had a gentleman come in asking to build a larger than allowed garage. There was a maximum allowable, or a certain percentage of your lot. And he has a very large lot, and we were allowed him to build a standard garage only, because it's what we allow, because we have a maximum. So, we had gone back and forth, and I don't understand why we have a maximum garage allowable, and the guy has like a half-acre lot in the middle of the village.
What is it, if you have an attached garage, you can have an additional outbuilding at, what, 250? I guess I'd have to look it up,
You have it
250, and then if you have no attached garage, you can have a standalone garage outbuilding for 760,
It's 760, is what he was allowed maximum,
if you don't have it attached.
if he didn't have it.
Yeah, once you have it attached, I think it changes. Do we have that information?
I got the zoning ordinance, so it's gonna take me a minute to
Because if
find
we
it.
just went by the percentage rule, he could have built like.
Should be.
Okay.
Percentage width,
Someone can always come in and request a variance too.
Okay, here it is.
They
If
did,
you wanna build a carriage
right here.
barn and it turns,
It
you
is.
can come in and get a variance.
you can,
It's
but
just-
did, I mean, I don't want to steer the discussion from the chair, but it's,
No,
my whole thing is why do we want to have all these people that have larger than, I mean, I have a standard village lot, I'm sure most of us have standard village lots, some of us don't. But
that's a good point.
you, he started it. It's just, I don't understand why we're limiting everybody to something that doesn't fit, not everything's the same. There are differences. We have a percentage rule, and then we're like, until you get to this point, and then we're not gonna use it anymore.
Isn't that why they would apply for a variance then?
Correct, but then you got a line of people with large lots lining up to pay, I don't wanna talk about numbers, large sums of money to allow to build something that is clearly
So you think we should just write it in,
based on percentages,
write it in?
Percentages.
based it on the percentage rather than have a max.
Do you wanna read it, or do you read it?
Oh, go ahead. I can't read.
Dwelling units with attached garages may be allowed not more than one detached accessory building not to exceed 250 square feet in total area. Dwelling units without an attached garage may be allowed not more than one detached accessory building not to exceed 790 square feet in total area.
And 2 stories maximum height of like 25 or 30 feet?
It's 25.
25 feet. Accessory building shall not exceed 2 stories or 25 feet in total height.
250 square feet?
If you have an attached.
If you have an
garage.
attached
If you have an attached.
Right.
Garage.
So
If you don't,
Like a shed.
seven
a
sixty.
decent
Shed, like
sized
for 250.
shed per se,
Right,
You want one,
what I have.
right.
in addition
Well,
to your garage.
it's pretty easy to get to 760 if you wanna build a larger garage.
760 is not even that big of a garage.
No.
760 is.
I mean, I'm not saying a guy's trying to build a pole barn, a standard pole barn's 1,200 square feet, they're 30 by 40.
Yeah.
And it's not even it's 400 feet over good.
Do you really wanna have pole barns in the village?
I mean,
Well, we
to
don't,
me,
we
it's
don't
not, it's a
allow
height
stick
issue.
frame anymore. I think the last one that went in was on 32 mile.
You can define building materials,
Yeah.
which if you don't want tin. My question is, if you walk up and down Tilson, you've got giant garages everywhere.
Or pole frame.
They're pole frame barns.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're-
Everywhere.
They're pole barns, they were, pardon me, they were
Carriage
carriage
They're
barns, and they
carriage,
were
yeah,
built
carriage
there in
barns.
the 1890s.
Right,
Very,
so-
if someone wants to build a carriage barn,
Right.
it can be done.
But that's my thing is, a large building doesn't look large when it's sitting in the middle of, when the guy has a giant yard. If somebody has a large yard that would accommodate a large structure, I don't see the issue with that. But that's my whole thing is, I asked for it to come back up to planning, to have the planning commissioner, I mean, it was like 8 months ago. But it's, my whole thing was, why do we have a maximum and then a percentage where this guy would have fell well under the percentage, well under?
So if we change the percentage, then does that then allow someone with a smaller lot to build larger than 760 where it devours more of their yard?
You could have a minimum, I mean, right, but that's the thing is, I can't build what he's gonna build. I have a village lot, but he has a larger lot
Or
towards the
does that even allow you to
outskirts.
build 760 then, or restricts you to,
Probably
yeah. So if we change, we
But
just go
also,
with solar
Justin, you can't exceed 35% of your building to lot. So
currently.
that would be, you know, also.
You can't, that's the max, you cannot go past that line,
Yeah.
so that's already enforced. But the 760 is as large as the building can or 790, I'm sorry, is as large as the building can be without an attached garage, period.
Mhm.
Just doesn't seem like we're,
I agree, because I cannot build on my lot currently, I can't build anymore.
but anyway, that's the background of that.
I don't disagree. I think there should be something written to allow, if you have the property, you have the use or the space to utilize.
But as you were saying, Mr. Park, there is an avenue to do that. My thing is I didn't think there should be a fee. So I asked the planning commission to look at it and see if it's something they're willing to change, and if not, then you stay the fee-based route.
Well, we could waive the fee for that particular request and then put it in the zoning. If you're asking for an accessory building variance, there would be no fee.
Or do we define a
Or we
carriage
make it
house?
$100 for that fee. I agree with you,
All variances cost the same.
but I don't think, and I think having to pay $1,000 or whatever it currently is perhaps ludicrous. And
Mhm.
perhaps for that particular type of variance, we could specify the fee is $100, which is,
Right, but but at that point, why not just scrub the rule and say 35% because it carries the maximum?
35% on a half-acre lot would be a 7,000.
Nobody's gonna build, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody.
No, the minute you say no, some
That's
fool
gonna
will.
do
I mean,
Right.
let's not kid ourselves.
Right, I know, I get it, I understand,
Perhaps if you did 35% or
but 790 to
2,000
me-
square feet of ground space and whichever is less. I
I
mean,
don't know.
you just don't want a building
790
hideously big.
790 to me felt arbitrary, the number felt arbitrary.
I admit it's arbitrary, but life is arbitrary.
I
You're
mean,
gonna
so
die
ultimately,
eventually.
you could
That's
build a
arbitrary.
larger attached garage
Yes.
than you could detached.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess that, I see the issue. I could put a 30-foot by whatever on the back of mine and still be within my percentage, but if it's attached, that's okay. But the second we go detached,
So you build a long skinny hallway to it, so whatever you want.
does it have to be attached physically above ground, or can I have a tower?
Right.
So is your issue the fee or just the arbitrary? I have no problem about getting the fee changed. I think that'd be,
Right.
that's fine, because I think the fees are ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's a fees of village policy though, which I don't know if we can make them change.
Oh, sure we can. We can make a recommendation.
We can
and
make a
And the
recommendation.
council can either vote it up or down,
Right.
and we can scowl at them and throw rocks at their houses. It doesn't matter.
Okay, and
No problem.
can I make one comment?
Absolutely.
All right, I understand you
Sorry,
think
I get
it's,
carried
I understand you think the fee is ridiculous, but isn't the point of having a fee for a variance because you really don't wanna give people variances anyway? Because you
No.
want to stand
The fee
with
for the
your
variance is to pay for the variance procedure to happen.
Right, but
By
it's,
law.
but you still want to try and
It's not to dissuade people.
dissuade?
They
It's not?
can't
The
be.
Okay.
fee is not to
Lisa,
dissuade
Okay.
people.
That's
It's
not
specific in the
to
law.
dissuade.
Okay.
It's like you can't charge for services unless you're actually paying for services, and the
Exactly,
village has
yeah.
just gone around on that, and they're coughing up money over it.
So I
There
guess,
you go.
I don't know, definition, defining what
But again, I'm just one person.
what outbuildings
Explain
can
it.
be built and to what size or what
Right.
percentage, and I guess we need some definitions with that.
Yeah, I've seen them a lot in charts, you know, if you're from this size to this size, you can have this. If you're from this size to this size, you can have this. This is, you got this much square footage, this is what you get, you know. Once you get-
Of building space.
Of accessory structure.
Regardless if it's attached or detached. The
Now, if you
percent-
have, you know, there's a limitation on how much accessory structure you can have that isn't attached to your principal. So
Yeah.
it's not an attached garage,
I
there's
think
a
that's what
limitation.
he was getting at was, if you can do 35% attached, detached, whatever, that 35%'s yours to use.
It's your parcel.
Mhm.
I think we just need to then define, do we want outhouses and, or whatever, you know, we gotta define what that definition of the outbuildings would consist of, I would think.
Do you guys have a specific proposal in mind?
Yeah, do you have,
No, he said there was
I mean,
one months ago.
I'm not
that-
trying to be a pain, I'm just
No,
asking.
my whole thing is I think the 790 is not large enough. That's if it's just.
Square footage or total?
Yes, the square footage.
That's a 25 by 35, no, it's a 20 by 30,
It's a little under 20 by 40.
yeah, just under 20 by 40. yeah.
Right.
That's.
Which is weird.
That's a pretty decent pole, that's pretty decent carriage barn, really.
But it depends
It was
on the
what,
size of
20?
your lot too. I
Right.
mean,
If
look
you
at,
got
look
my
at, look
lot,
at,
yes.
look at, just as an example, okay, and not, there's not many lots this size in the village, but look at the lot of where the gray house is at.
The gray-
790 would be nothing there,
It's what's standing there
next
right
door.
now.
or next door, right,
John's old place?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of parcels here in town that 790 really wouldn't be all that big, or, you know, wouldn't be, you know,
If you don't have an attached.
right, if you
Currently,
don't have an
that's the
attached.
problem.
Would-
Like, I do
would
have
you
an
feel
attached
more
garage, so
comfortable
I have
with
a
1,000
little
square feet?
shed.
Right,
That's all I can have in my
exactly.
backyard.
Would you feel
Yeah,
comfortable with
250.
1,000 square feet of ground space?
Somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200, yeah. 'Cause, I mean, but I don't want a pole barn like
Not
you're
to
saying.
exceed 35% of your
Right, right.
property.
So you could make a motion that we recommend that they change the zoning to allow 1,000 square feet, and somebody might even support it.
Well, we could also ask the planner if she could,
Yeah.
I could
have
take a look at
something.
your accessory building ordinance and,
Just compare it.
draft some language for you guys to review.
There are a lot of carriage barns in town. I mean, they're barns, but they were built in 1890 or
Bill's probably
80.
got one.
Right here.
Billy's got one, in fact. How big is
Oh, we
yours?
built one in Tilson?
30 by 36, I think.
So about
Yeah, you're not
1,000
built that
square
big.
feet. That's a pretty decent sized pole barn, or carriage barn too. You could put
Hope that doesn't
at
burn
least 2 carriages and a couple of horses in there. No
No
question about
problem.
it.
And it's got a second story.
And if she looks at that, we'd have something to talk about at the next meeting.
Or just something along the lines of what do neighboring communities do when it comes to that?
okay, so you're gonna look at that, and then we'll talk about it again next meeting? Is that correct?
I'm looking at an example right now. Here's one, parcel size less than 1 acre, you get 1,000 square feet. This is a rural, you know, location. If you have 1 acre to 1.49 acres, you can have 1,200 square feet. This goes all the way up to 10 acres.
Of outbuilding, regardless
Of
if you had an
outbuilding.
attached garage or not.
Your attached garage, if you have anything over 720 square feet on this in particular ordinance, so if you wanted to build a garage, if you wanted to build an outbuilding, and you had an 800 square foot garage attached to your house, you're allowed 720, you'd have to take 80 feet. You have to take out, you can't, see what I'm saying?
In total.
It's a
In total.
total, right, it's a total for your
Attached.
whole.
And a
Right.
total amount of
Yes.
accessory
Of
structure in
all
a
your
garage,
buildings,
attached garage
yeah.
is still an accessory structure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not so.
It is, yeah.
So what I'm saying is if you have a house,
Yeah, it don't
and the
make
garage
sense.
is 720, you don't have to take anything off of the accessory building. You can have 1,000, 1,200, whatever it says. If your garage that's attached has more than 720 square feet, then whatever the maximum
Yeah,
of your accessory is, you have to take off that difference between 720 and anything over 720 is what you have to do. It's confusing.
You don't like
I just gotta go more attached.
I love it.
So next month, we get information from you on the mixed use
I don't have
and
it
the
after.
accessory building, correct?
But that's
Okay.
all.
I'm gonna ask for a unanimous agreement that we adjourn tonight's meeting. All in
Oh,
favor?
yes.
Favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Quite a-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I promise I don't talk like this. I promise I don't ramble on it.
That's yours, here, yeah, that's yours.